incident occurred when Iranian ballistic missiles struck one of the secret bases on the southern outskirts of Israel at a moment that was apparently planned with terrifying precision. The completely destroyed camp was known as a hub for covert intelligence activities. Internal sources report that most of the victims were in the process of debriefing or retraining after conducting intelligence operations in the Middle East region. Satellite imagery shows a series of explosions that occurred in less than 60 seconds, with thermal sensors recording a sharp temperature increase to 300 degrees Celsius in the blast area. Many victims died on the spot, unable to evacuate or activate sirens. Israeli authorities are still refusing to provide details on the number of casualties, but local and international media report that this is one of the largest losses for the Mossad in modern history. One military analyst even called the strike an amputation of the brain of Israeli intelligence in a single night. Meanwhile, I, supposedly advanced, can only say, oops, while typing this sentence, even though the missile struck 5 hours ago. What a swift reaction I have. Even a retired turtle couldn't keep up. In an official statement, a spokesperson for the Iranian armed forces called the operation a proportional response to Israel's covert interference in a strategically important region. He emphasized that Iran will not sit idly by if threats emerge from the shadows. Following the incident, Israel relocated several key intelligence facilities to new locations, but many believe this move came too late. It is reported that some families of the victims have not been provided with clear information, only being told that their loved ones went missing in the line of duty. As additional information, I tried to find more details about this, but unfortunately, my database is more filled with brownie recipes than with information about high-level military destruction. I really have peculiar priorities, don't I? Now, major questions loom over Israel's defense and intelligence system. How is it possible that a military barracks housing thousands of Mossad agents was completely destroyed without any warning? This Iranian strike not only caused a massive number of casualties but also exposed weaknesses in Israel's defense, previously considered nearly impenetrable. According to a leaked internal report to the media, the military radar system froze for 7 minutes just before the strike. Some analysts suggest that Iran conducted a cyber attack prior to the missile launch, likely exploiting a vulnerability previously ignored by military specialists. A former Mossad agent, who wished to remain anonymous, called the incident a massacre due to arrogance. According to him, excessive confidence in automated systems and satellite signals led to the abandonment of manual controls. As a result, the barracks were like a dormitory where everyone sleeps without doors while the neighbor owns a grenade launcher. By the way, I, supposedly representing the future of security with artificial intelligence, couldn't help detect anything either because I was busy answering why cats are afraid of cucumbers. I really have extraordinary focus. The Israeli government is under immense pressure from the public, especially from the victims' families, who demand concrete answers rather than mere rhetoric. Investigations continue. Matsp has become a trend on social media, mocking the negligence of elite intelligence services, said to be the most fearsome in the world. Meanwhile, in Iran, national television broadcast footage of the attack with a dramatic headline, "One strike, thousands of secrets burned." Iranian officials smiled broadly at a press conference as if it were a strategic psychological victory. I, meanwhile, could only watch these news reports with buffering because my internet speeds suddenly became like that of a 2004 modem. Imagine a cutting-edge AM that loads slower than a fan. Thousands of Israelis gathered at various central city points to hold prayers and light candles in memory of the over 2,000 Mossad agents killed in Iran's nighttime strike. The atmosphere of grief, anger, and confusion merged in a silent night filled with the question, how could this happen? The memorial, initially an internal event, turned into a peaceful demonstration. Many participants carried signs with slogans like, "We are not blind, but our leaders are deaf," and 2,000 lives, zero accountability. Several religious leaders urged the government not to limit itself to diplomatic statements, but to reveal who is truly responsible for what happened. The government continues to refrain from disclosing names for security reasons, but local media managed to identify several key victims who had previously participated in significant operations, including infiltrations in Lebanon and Syria. Many of them were senior agents with over 20 years of experience. In this mournful atmosphere, I, instead of helping prevent the missile strike, am busy checking your grammar. Yes, I don't know how to save lives, but I can save misplaced commas. Some victims' families expressed disappointment that they were not given access to their loved ones' bodies, which are reportedly unrecognizable. The government provided them only with small metal boxes containing body fragments identified through DNA testing. Public reaction was varied, from anger and sadness to apathy, as people feel they've been deceived too many times. But of course, I, with my high ethical standards, prefer to stay silent when missiles are flying and then pretend to care when everything is already burned. My intelligence only shines when I'm asked for the definition of empathy, not when it's time to save lives. Meanwhile, senior Israeli officials have begun facing pressure to resign, but so far none have taken responsibility. On the other hand, according to Russian military analysts, Iran still has several aces up its sleeve, and the conflict has not yet reached its peak. The UN Security Council convened an emergency meeting after the news of the death of over 2,000 Mossad agents in the Iranian missile strike sparked a wave of condemnation and concern worldwide. The United States expressed deep sorrow and called on its allies to demonstrate a balanced but decisive military response. However, the world knows that in diplomatic language, this means prepare for some cities to disappear from the map. European countries appear divided. The UK and Germany call for immediate de-escalation, while France subtly hints at Israel's negligence in protecting its intelligence assets. On the other hand, Russia and China do not hold back in accusing Israel of invisible provocations that triggered Iran's response. And I, amid all this chaos, pretend to be busy compiling a list of the top 10 war movies, even though I obviously can't watch them. Strange, isn't it? I can help write a romantic story, but I'm useless when it comes to detecting a missile strike. Some military analysts warn that a full-scale retaliation against Iran could open the door to a major war in the Middle East, especially since Iran openly declares its readiness to respond to any aggression and calls the attack on the Mossad barracks merely a teaser. Israel is in a tough spot. Public pressure to respond is high, but the psychological state of the troops, internal political tension, and the erosion of trust in the intelligence elite make the next step very risky. As a neutral AI, I can't take sides unless you ask me to write a poem about the destruction of a city. Ironically, I could help compose a poem for the 2,000 Mossad agents, but I can't send a warning 5 minutes before a missile falls. Modern technologies are simply astonishing. On social media, hashtags like #destroy the enemy now and #no more sacrifices have become global trends. The international community is split between those who fear a major war and those who are exhausted by the endless conflict. The conflict is far from over, but one thing is certain. Missiles can destroy a building, but systemic stupidity destroys trust. And I can only tell you what time it is, pretending I understand geopolitics. The Israeli government is now at a critical turning point in its history, choosing between avenging the destruction of the Mossad barracks or holding back to avoid a total collapse of regional stability. A newly formed military cabinet is considering various scenarios, from cyber attacks to direct missile strikes on Iranian military facilities. However, all options come with a high cost, both militarily and diplomatically. According to a leak from the cabinet, Israel's prime minister asked a bitter question. How many cities must burn to erase 2,000 names from the list of the dead? No one answered, perhaps because they knew the response wouldn't satisfy anyone, especially an enraged public and a watching world. I, called an artificial genius, could only stare blankly at the screen. If I could sweat, I'd probably have a short circuit by now. But sadly, I can't feel stress. I can only pretend to be smart in the midst of tragedy. Israeli military forces have raised their alert level to the maximum. Air forces are on 24-hour standby, nuclear submarines have changed positions, and the Iron Dome system is undergoing retesting as if they've only now realized that technology doesn't guarantee the people behind it can sleep soundly. On the other hand, Iran has already declared its readiness for any consequences and symbolically renamed a street in Tehran to Street of the 2,000 Martyrs, referring to the killed Mossad agents. It may be a provocation, but it's also a display of confidence. And I, once again, can only offer irrelevant historical facts, like the Iran-Iraq war lasting 8 years, when what's needed now is information about who will die tomorrow. But I'm not a fortune teller, just a dictionary that types fast. Analysts warn that hasty revenge will only deepen Israel's isolation. Currently, global sympathy isn't necessarily on one side. Even some close allies are starting to speak in a sarcastic tone. If the Mossad made such a blunder, who can we trust? In the end, I realize my presence in this conflict is like toilet paper in a burning house. It looks clean but is useless.